At the end of this video, I'm going to show you some of the pictures of the aftermath of the tragedy that befell my Mahiu town in the Rift Valley in Kenya. On the 9th of April 29, 2024, in a quiet town in Kenya's Rift Valley, people went to sleep listening to the rain beating on their rooftops. However, just a few kilometers away, hidden behind a railway tunnel that was blocked, was an entire lake. And later that night, it will come crashing down in this town, devastating life and property. Welcome to Beyond Earth. In this channel, you will experience stories about strange phenomena and paranormal events that actually happened and that will leave you questioning whether there's something beyond. If you are new to this channel, take a moment to subscribe. Remember to like the video. And finally, remember to comment where you're watching us from and what you think about today's story. Let's get started. The Rift Valley is one of the most iconic landscapes in the world, found in Eastern Africa. It is a long valley that covers several countries. It contains several lakes and even mountains on its floor. Similarly, its floor is occupied with several towns and villages all the way from Ethiopia to Uganda. And one of such towns is Mai Mahiu. This town is found in the base of the escarpment of the Rift Valley in the country of Kenya. In the hills above Mai Mahiu, a place where land rises and falls in long and even ridges, it had been raining for days. In 2024, the El Nino rains that had fallen since December 2023 had now reached the peak, and several places in Kenya and even in East Africa were pretty much flooded. The rain was not the kind that comes and goes, but the kind that stays, heavy, relentless, and unforgiving. Down below, life continued as normal. Mai Mahiu is not a flooding hotspot, and there was not much trouble expected. Well, the Weather Institute had warned about flash floods and landslides, but this particular place was quite stable, so not much trouble was expected at all. But in this place, a tragedy was building up, a worse tragedy. But the surprising part is that no one knew about it, no one expected it when it came. And so on this fateful day, shops closed early because the rains had started a bit early and people gathered indoors. Well, the residents of this region had experienced rains, but this kind was different. They had never experienced this type of rains since, because it had now been months of continuous rain. The ground was saturated with water and runoff was experienced even in the slightest rainfall. High above the town, where the hills rose above the escarpment, rainwater was doing what it always does, flowing downhill. Small streams merged into larger currents, and those currents into something stronger. All of it rushing toward one narrow passage, an old railway tunnel. Dark, cold, barely visible beneath overgrown vegetation. At first, water passed through easily, but then something changed. A branch got stuck, then another, rocks followed, and then mud stuck and filled the gaps. And slowly, almost silently, the tunnel began to choke. The water kept coming, but now it had nowhere to go. So it started to collect. At first, it formed a shallow pool, then a pond, then something far more dangerous. Behind that blocked tunnel, a hidden reservoir was forming, a growing body of water held back by nothing more than debris. Back in the village, people cooked and went to bed early as the rains continued thundering on their roofs. Sometime in the night, a young man stepped outside his home. Well, the rain was still raining and it hit him in the face. It was cold at first, but there was something else that shocked him. A low, distant rumble, almost like thunder, but constant. He looked towards the hills, nothing but darkness, no warning lights, no signs of danger, just rain and night. Inside, his family slept, and like everyone else in Mai Mahiu, they had no idea that above them, millions of liters of water were pressing against a weakened barrier up in the hills. The pressure was building up in the hills, and the debris that was meant to hold the millions of liters of reservoir that had collected behind it was not a dam, and so, as the pressure continued to increase, it strained it. and it weakened. Every second it strained, every second it weakened, until it couldn't hold anymore. It didn't crack slowly, it didn't give a warning. Instead, it came down in an instant. The entire blockage collapsed, and all the trapped water was released in an instant. Now, what came rushing down the hill was not only water, and this is where nature needs to be respected. It was a violent surge of mud, rocks, and broken trees moving down the hill with unstoppable force. It roared loud enough to wake an entire village. The young man noticed it. This time, there was no mistake about it. Within seconds, the flood reached their first homes. It hit with explosive force. Walls collapsed instantly. Roofs torn apart. Vehicles lifted and carried like toys. The young man burst into his house. He woke up his family. There was no time to explain, no time to think. Outside, people were screaming, some running, some frozen. Some didn't even make it to the door. The water moved too fast, too sudden, too powerful. Entire sections of settlement were swallowed. Darkness, broken only by instants of lightning, revealed a pure scene of chaos. And then, as quickly as it came, it began to pass, carrying with it anything and anyone it came across. By morning, the rain had ceased. What remained was silence. The land looked unrecognizable. Where homes once stood, now there was mud, destruction, chaos. Lives had been lost, families torn apart, and in fact, it would take some weeks for some of them to find their beloved ones, some buried under the debris. Survivors were left trying to understand how something like this could happen. And so sometimes disasters don't begin with explosions, or warnings, or alarms. Sometimes they begin quietly with something small like a blocked tunnel. And by the time anyone notices, it is already too late. And so here are the pictures of the aftermath of this tragedy.